All right, ready to go. We're here. Here where the what is it that Dude Perfect always says? Where the set's real, but the mics are fake.
Right,
So today
exactly.
we have real discussion.
I
but
never
the
thought we'd do a
microphone's
Dude
fake.
Perfect reference
So-
in Caucus. This is sad.
I have kids, man. I have little boys. Like we love Dude Perfect in my house.
There you go.
But yeah, it's good. Well, welcome everyone to a unauthorized caucus, another one. We're just going to try to reference as many famous people, YouTube channels, political or not, because all we got to do is get one reshare and views go up. So
That's right.
we got to keep name dropping. We don't know you guys, but feel free. Mic is real, but it's not plugged in, so it's kind of fake. So feel free.
Steven
to share.
Crowder.
We should have the fake mic club instead of the mug club.
Right,
We could
exactly.
start some sort of Patreon for us. So
Exactly.
anyway, welcome everyone to another Thursday, another unauthorized caucus. Obviously, Andrew and I are here. We're going to keep hopping around. You see some studio equipment back here. This is some of the lingering effects of Teen Eagles and the media things that they're doing. A quick reminder, if you're not plugged into them, go to stlteeneagles.org, right?
Yeah.
Forwards along, gets to the
.com.
right, right, .com,
I think
that's
it's
right.
.com, yeah.
.com. Get you along to the right place, but they are retooling and doing some really neat things this year. Obviously, I'm a Teen Eagle alum, Andrew's a Teen Eagle alum, and it's just neat to see young people continuing to press forward, not only in doing the same, conserving, as conservatives is what we do, conserving the good values in society, but evolving and moving forward on the technologies. That's really neat, and it's been cool to see as well. So I'm glad to have that connection continuing. But we have another little bit of a similar thing, talking about Teen Eagles and high school and education. One of the things that was on our mind a lot this week, and you probably wouldn't see it other places in our Phyllis Schlafly Eagles media, was education, specifically public education, the status of it, and alternatives to it. And we were a little bit inspired, well, a lot inspired by a Tuesday night talk that we had. Alex Newman, hopefully most of you are familiar with. Alex Newman is a wonderful resource, an investigative journalist, an author, former educator. I believe I've seen in his bio, although I don't know. I mean, he taught at a couple of college level things.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, not like a public school teacher or anything, but he is a teacher by gift. He is absolutely awesome at sharing and imparting information and then what to do about it. And one of his big topics that he talks about through the New American, where he's a senior editor, great magazine, great online presence if you're not there, also his own company, Liberty Sentinel. He does a huge talk about the real situation of our public education system. And I know that a lot of people start to, talk about, we've had this mass exodus from homeschooling. This has come back in vogue.
Homeschooling.
Yeah, exactly. To homeschooling, not from. We've had this mass exodus to homeschooling from the public schools.
Yeah.
And it has brought the conversation back up because there are a lot of us who've talked about homeschooling for a long time, but it is back in the news. And it's because as the public schools got into people's homes on your kids' laptops and Zoom screens and everything else, people started realizing, wow, this is broken. And it's not even just like, well, I don't want my kid to go to public school because of the influences and some of the more liberal schools. No, the system itself and the way that we're teaching kids and what we're teaching them, this is not reading, writing, and math. This is not giving my kids the building blocks to move forward as good citizens, good adults, good voters, good business people, good whatever. This is teaching them a load of hooey. And it really is interesting when you start to dive back into the history of our public education system. It was not set up to have kids learn and succeed. It was set up to have kids conform to a system. And that's just, I mean, if this is a red pill moment for you, this is pretty lightweight compared to what Alex talks about.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do is I'd like Andrew to give a couple of reflections and talk just a little bit about it. I see he's got one of the resources, one of our props in hand here, but I'm going to post something. Tuesday night, Alex Newman was here in St. Louis, gave a presentation on, was it Save Our Children or Rescuing Our Children? Rescue Our Children. It was not recorded, but it is very similar to others he's given. Now, if you've heard him give this talk before, I highly recommend that you watch it again or that you find him again in person when he comes near you. This was John Birch Society and Concerned Women for America. We're hosting this one, but you need to go because this is a constantly evolving and changing situation. And Alex, as an investigative journalist, always has the newest things to the forefront and then ties it back through history to point what's happening, what it means, and where we need to go. So I'm going to post a version of this talk here in the links while he goes off. But I really encourage you, when you're done with this, it's his from our event in 2019. He was one of our headliners at Eagle Council. It's probably about 37 minutes long. We heard closer to 90 minutes Tuesday night. Watch it. If you can't do it now, do it tonight. If you can't do it tonight, do it tomorrow night. This is important, especially if you have kids in public school, or if you don't, but know people who do. This information is extremely relevant. And warning, this is kind of a big red pill moment because he's going to go into a lot of stuff that you would almost think is crazy off the front, but it's just not. It's well researched, it's well documented, it's true. So just kind of take the blinders off and go into it open-minded and see what you think. Let me post this. And Andrew, what do you have to kick us off here?
I interviewed Alex, and I sent you the link to that Teen Eagles YouTube, so you could post that. But yeah, Alex wrote this book, co-wrote it with Dr. Samuel Blumenfeld, Crimes of the Educators. Really should read this. And in the spirit of Phyllis, she actually said a must-read for every parent. So she recommended Crimes of the Educators. A little Phyllis plug there on the back. But this book is just jam-packed. I was kind of flipping through it this morning. This is a 2003 study. So 20 years ago, 43% of Americans read at the lowest literacy level, according to the National Assessment of Adult Literacy. That's just a surface level problem of kind of the root cause, which is the public school was built to be a cesspool of Marxist propaganda. That's the bottom line. And this is where this red pill moment comes in, where it's not, Common Core, we're reading garbage literature. It's deeper than that. The worldview behind public government education, institutionalized at every level, is to promote Marxist, humanistic propaganda. That's the kind of red pill moment that conservative people need to realize. And Alex was during his presentation, he's sharing all these facts about, the drag queen story hours and the sexual perversion that's going into the schools. And, he uses this illustration that I love, that if your kids were in a burning building, would you, petition the school board to rescue the kids from the burning building? Would you go to a school board meeting and stand at a podium and say, get my kid out of the burning building? No, you'd run into the burning building, rescue your child, then try to take care of the root cause of what started this fire. How can we prevent this from happening again? This is what needs to happen to our students and our kids today, right? It's on fire. And Alex makes the comparison that actually the hypothetical of your kid burning in a building is actually not as bad as the reality of what's going on now of them being in school, because if you put your kid through K through 12, it not only affects mind, body, and soul, right? So it's of eternal consequence rather than just external if you were to burn in a building, hypothetically. So Alex really goes off. You need to watch the presentation that he posted. If you have time, less time, you can watch the 8-minute interview. I think it's 8 minutes that I did with Alex. And get your hands on Crimes of the Educators. Great resource, great book.
And this is, for some of and I'll say the old timers, I know I'm not going to say who you are. I know we've got some old timers that watch, because I did just bring back the load of hooey comment. And someone commented that was apparently a first for her in a while. I actually had a coworker make fun of me for using an old, we don't even have to get into that some other time. When you have old people make fun of you for the phrasings that you're using, it's been a while since someone said that. So I'll stop it there. But really, for some of the old timers who may not know Alex yet, but you do know some of the more classic figures on education, when Alex Newman came onto our radar, it wasn't actually through the New American. It wasn't through his investigative work. It was about a decade ago when he was working on finishing out this book. And what Phyllis Schlafly, I remember, there's an insider story. I remember what Phyllis Schlafly said to me one time sitting in her office. Let's get this Alex Newman on my radio show, because if he worked with Sam Blumenfeld, he's good enough for me. The reputation preceded. So, if the name Sam Blumenfeld, for the old timers who were looking at this issue in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, Alex Newman and Sam Blumenfeld knew each other, worked together. And essentially, I think Alex finished this work that Sam had started, because this was a like a decade in the making kind of expose in a book form. So this book, Crimes of the Educators, is worth getting. And it'll also, if you know of Alex but not of Sam Blumenfeld, may it introduce you to Sam Blumenfeld's work. If you knew about Sam but you don't know about Alex, this is the same caliber of continuation that you ought to follow. So that's a really good point. But it's been interesting to have this conversation, because I don't think it's any secret here. I'm a homeschooler. I was homeschooled K through 12. You were homeschooled K through 12, right? You didn't have any, private school in there somewhere you're hiding from me?
There was half-day kindergarten at private Christian school that lasted for a very short time.
Kindergarten's not school, unlike the public school system would tell you. So we won't count that. You can be K through 12. You're good. But we talk about the advantages of that. The disadvantages of the public system are really pretty clear. You could argue about Marxist and socialist and then that, but when you get back to the very beginning of it, not even John Dewey, when you go back to Horace Mann, back into the 19th century, what you see is a group of people who explicitly wanted to get rid of not just active Christianity, going to church, Judeo-Christian values, basic underpinnings, private property, life, you can't take another person's life or their stuff. We have to respect the law. These things need to go so that we can institute, with our grand knowledge, a new system. And in order to do that, we need to create this new model of school that teaches you not how to think, not how to become great physicians, the Enlightenment thinkers, the revolutionaries, the reformers, but teaches you how to fit inside our box, answer our questions on our standardized knowledge, and no more. You're going to be a good little cog in that clock of society that we're creating. And literally a European dictator loved the idea so much, he instituted it at the national level in Prussia, and then 50 years later, it came back around in America. We adopted the Prussian model. It literally is a model of education that is made to teach kids how to not learn anything outside of this box, which is fundamentally opposite of any ideal that America was founded upon, which was to learn the building blocks and then go forth and create new things up to a new society. So it really isn't that much of a red pill to swallow when you take some of the politically charged terminology out of it, like the Marxism and different things, which are all accurate, but have been charged up in our society. You take that out, you start to look at the people who started this and say, wait a minute, this is just a fundamentally bad way to teach kids. It's not teaching them anything. It's teaching them what you want them to know, but then limiting them. It's got a what is that, a capacitor on it? It has a capacity. I don't know what I was going for, like a speed governor, like you have on your car. Try to go more than 120 miles an hour, you'll find out what I'm talking about. There's a speed governor that stops the car from going. It limits you. That's exactly what public education in America has done. And it's not that old. It's only been around for about 100 years, and yet this is just all everyone knows. So what's really exciting is when you find people who draw all these things together, we go and watch this kind of stuff and then say, okay, like this is awful. But what now? Like, what do we do about it? Because this is just the standard. Even in private schools, well, I don't want my kid to go to public school to get those influences, so I'm going to send him to private Christian school, and we're going to talk about the Bible. But we're still abiding by this K through 12, all the same curriculum, state standards. We have to get our accreditation. What the heck do we do about that? What do we do about that?
Well, I think that the answer is, when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I'll say this too, Alex takes the problem a little further, especially for Christians, right? Where it isn't even a matter of if the content's good in schools, right? Because we get into this discussion of accreditation or public school or private school or charter school, or what's the answer, right? But Alex even makes the point, and I agree with this, that even if it was good, let's say, the content in public schools was good, biblically, if you're a Christian and you subscribe to the Judeo-Christian worldview, is this a correct way of having society operate in the family structure in your kids? Deuteronomy 6:7, says that Caesar shall teach your kids diligently and, teach them when they sit in your house and walk by the way and when you lie down, when you rise. No, it says you shall teach them diligently when you talk with them.
For anyone who missed him glossing over that, he inserted Caesar. I'm not sure we heard. It was
Caesar.
Alex does it better.
He does do it better.
Let Alex do
I'm mimicking the bit.
Let Alex do Alex's
it says you shall teach them. It doesn't say Caesar shall teach them. It says you shall teach your kids diligently when you talk with them, when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise. That doesn't really leave any time for a 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. school schedule or whatever it may be, right? So even if the content's good, even if it's private school, charter school, et cetera, right? From a biblical worldview perspective, it's the sole job of the parents alone to educate their children. And Proverbs 22:6 is the same thing. Train up a child, right? It's speaking to the parents in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it, right? So it's kind of rational to say, if you send them to Caesar, for Caesar to train them up in the way they should go, when they're old, they'll not depart from the way in which Caesar taught them. So even from a worldview perspective, it doesn't matter the content that's going on in the schools, which is horrible, by the way. Just the principle and the idea of the structure itself doesn't subscribe to a Judeo-Christian worldview. And it's not even the structure that our founding fathers followed. They were all self-educated, self-taught. And when they did go to school, it was seminary or, some sort of a college that was very classical in its means, that was undergirthed by biblical worldview. So really the answer lies in the just structural question of whose job is it to teach my kids? And if we can answer that, which I think we have the answer, all these other problems go away, because it's not the government's problem.
And that's one of the interesting things, because you would think, and one of the talking points conservatives have so much is parental rights.
Right.
This comes up, but that actually on its face that used to not be attacked, but it is being attacked now in the public square. People are actually saying something about how selfish and authoritarian and dictatorial. How dare you say your children belong to you and blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is unheard of that someone would actually challenge that 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. And now they're challenging it because how dare you? We are out loud saying, and again, we're going back to the roots of this. You want to go back to the John Deweys, the Horace Manns, everyone in between. It was about not a 100-year gap. There's about a 50, 75-year gap between the two of them, plus a little bit. But these guys would actually say out loud, yeah, your children don't belong to you. Your children belong to the state. In fact, you belong to the state. All of us belong to each other, the state. Like it is
takes
a very
village.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It is very
Yeah.
Marxist. That's where it comes in. It's Marxist because it is. That's exactly what Marxism is. It takes a very Marxist bent because you belong to the state. Your children belong to the state. So we collectively have the responsibility. And since we, the powerful, are the decision makers for society, we will be the decision makers over educating the children to come into society.
Yeah.
So it takes a village, the involvement of UN education standards and UNESCO and all this stuff. It really is. I mean, the end goal is, well, and here we get into the difference, which is there are some pure, I'll just wrap it up this way. There are some people who are pure believers in that idea of collectivism, and they actually have utopian ridiculousness in their mind. But there are others who spout that knowing I want to be in charge. It's really all about power and authority. It's not actually about believing in collectivism. But it's amazing to me that that's the actual argument against us now is they're arguing against parents' rights, because how dare you say you know better than anyone else for your child? Well, and that's how we encroached upon it. Other people, the experts, know better.
Right.
How dare you say that your children belong to you? Well, they don't belong to you, the state. So I don't quite know where else we're going to go. It's just a very interesting evolution to see, but I hope that it happens soon enough now in society that there is a knee-jerk reaction to it. If people say, whoa, 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 this is that. Yes, they do. Like, the children don't belong to you, the government. They maybe belong to us, my community, but not you. So, I mean, I hope that they are challenging that out loud enough now to get more people interested in alternatives. But I mean, this kind of travels as I see you flipping over a piece of paper in your hand I'd like you to talk about, but this kind of gets us into what do we do about it? So, I mean, obviously you and I are going to say, homeschool your kids.
Yeah.
Because not only does it protect them from a bunch of bad stuff out there, but educationally, I think both of us would argue, and almost everyone I know who is homeschooled, at least properly. Some people are homeschooled, but it's just mom and dad take us out of school and don't do anything. That's not what we're talking about. Your experience was bad. Educationally, I can't think of a better way to customize and make options for your kid and give freedom to your kid to expand and grow where they need to expand and grow their skill sets than homeschooling. But there are a lot of other options out there. The main thing is this public system is broken and ought not to be in place at all from any level, morally or civically or anything else. It doesn't make sense and it doesn't work well. So what are the options? Well, I'd say take your kids out and homeschool them, but then we do what about the public system that's there? Like, what can we do aside from everyone just pulling their kids out of public school? Even if you do that, I still pay taxes to my local schools. What can we start doing about that from the civic level? People are starting to come up with answers. You want to run us through that? And then there's some other things we can go through, but what can we do from the civic level? Because that's the thing everyone asks me when I talk about, you just want me to homeschool my kids? Well, yes. Yeah, I think you should. But what can we collectively in the civil realm actually do about this? Because we talk about educational freedom, vouchers, money follows you to other schools. But at that point, we're really just talking about public funded private schools. Is really all that it is. And we still have the accreditation standards and all the different things that along with it. Well, if you want to abide by our accreditation standards, you have to take our money. If you have to take our money, you have to do what we tell you to do. We're back at the same problem. So what do we do about that?
Well, I think one of the classic conservative answers is, well, we need to abolish the Department of Education. And that'd be a great start. Who disagrees with that? In the conservative realm, at least, they shouldn't. But that would be a great start. But I think one of the key issues here is not everyone can homeschool. So what's the answer to that? Well, I'd love to see churches step up and do more things with supporting communities, supporting single mothers in home education, or private school at a church or something. If you can't homeschool, I'd love to see that. But I think one of the things we need to do in the civic realm is really continue to protect homeschool rights and homeschool freedoms, because this is a battle that is raging right now in places you wouldn't even expect it. It's happening in Utah. It's happening in Florida. I'm holding this bill in my hand that I've kind of been messing with. This is House Bill 1 in Florida. Legislative session begins second or first week in March in Florida. This is the first bill on the docket, right? It's an act relating to school choice. Oh, well, that sounds nice. But conforming and providing student eligibility for homeschoolers to partake in family empowerment scholarship programs. It's like, oh, well, what does that mean? Well, they're going to say, well, if you're a homeschooler, you don't get to participate in the public school system, which everyone's paying taxes to. So we, the government, are going to allocate some funds in a scholarship program for homeschoolers and help you pay and cover some of those costs. And initially, without any thought, it's like, yeah, that's great, because I'm paying into a system as a homeschool parent that I don't get to utilize, the public school system. But there's kind of this reach for the shekel and they put on the shackle
Yeah.
mentality. And you don't get too far into this bill, right? I'm on page 4, I think, here, getting into the definitions of this piece of legislation. Choice navigator. Oh, what does that mean? Well, it means an individual who assists parents with the selection of, application for, and enrollment in educational options that address the academic needs of their students. Well, wait, what does that mean? Well, we're going to require students to take a nationally normalized test identified by the department or statewide assessment and provide educational records and assessment results to a choice navigator before the student's program renewal. So, hey, if you're a homeschooler, you want to opt into this, you want to get some of the benefits of this scholarship program, you're going to have it. It says at least one annual meeting with the state-assigned choice navigator to help you, the parent, decide what's best for your kid. And then also, you're going to have annual standardized testing. And then over and over again, I was reading this piece of legislation, Ryan, this morning, and it says after every single benefit that's listed, if all criteria are met, if all criteria are met, if all criteria are met. So you can get the money if you meet all the criteria. And it says that. I mean, it was over 10 times that it said if all the criteria is met. And I just hate that if homeschoolers would be ignorant and allow this type of legislation to be passed, whether it be in Florida, Missouri, Utah, anywhere, where, oh, we're going to get government money. Well, guess what? With money comes strings.
Yeah.
And the government is not going to give you a state scholarship to help with your home education and just give it to you and say, all right, here's the money, have fun. Go buy your teaching textbooks and your Wall Builders Constitution curriculum.
Yeah.
It's going to come with your annual meeting with your choice navigator. And no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You can homeschool for very low means. There's tons of resources online. We need to say no to this type of legislation that disguises itself under school choice when really it's just the shekels for shackles gag to, chain homeschoolers. I hate it. I hate it, Ryan.
Shekels, shackles, and gags.
Yeah, exactly.
Because now, did you steal that from someone just like the Alex thing a minute ago with the Caesar, or was that one an original?
That one was not an original. That one I had seen before.
Okay. All right. It's not an Andrew Muller. We're still waiting for an Andrew Muller original.
If you quote yourself, it's an original quote, right? So if you say it once and then you quote yourself, now it's an original quote.
Man, you're starting to sound like a liberal. This is incredible. See, because people are commenting on this now about the shackles and shekels, and I want to clarify so we don't give you too much credit that's not deserved. Although before I was going to make a comment, but before I do, I want to move along. Someone here is making an interesting comment, which is true. Is it interesting that the Industrial Revolution both made more time, but also got more people out of the home to work? So you would think it would make educating at home easier, but it didn't. Yep. And this is someone that says, it makes me curious how the tech revolution will affect education. That's definitely interesting. Although, well, that's a topic for another time. And at 25 minutes, 45 seconds in, I'm not going to dive into that, but I have an idea anyway. But this is the reality about this is the reason that Andrew found this, the reason we brought this up is the same thing. I look at it and I go, oh, that sounds good on its face. But then just like you today, I started scanning through the PDF and I'm like, strings. This is the conversation that I know some of us have had, and it's probably more common in the college world. Well, I'm going to go to college somewhere that does what they want to do. Well, colleges have had to fight this a lot. As a college, they've said, if I want to do what I want to do, the way that I want to do it, I can't take federal money. Yep. That is the only way for me to stay free of the interference of someone else saying, no, you have to do it this way. You have to meet that. And I know there are a lot of, especially Christian colleges, that preach this. Do not take federal money. Do whatever you have to do. Dave Ramsey yourself to death as a college if you have to not take federal money, because then and only then you can be free to do what you want to do, because once you take the money, the strings come with it very quickly. And as homeschoolers, we have to be worried about the same thing as even small private schools. We have to be worried about the same thing. And I know that there is because there are a lot of a lot of Baptist affiliated schools. There are a lot of Lutheran affiliated schools. There are a lot of Catholic parochial schools. Although at this point, I think that's become clear because a lot of people, especially a lot of Catholics in America, fled to Catholic school out of public school, only to realize like half of those are actually fairly liberal and abide by all the state standards. And even though we have religious tones across everything here, the curriculum standards are still garbage. And we still have a lot of the same issues. So as new waves of classical schools and new waves of homeschool-centric legislation come through, the same principle exists. Hey, good idea, bad implementation. Yes, we want to figure out how to make this work with taxpayer monies in homeschool. How should you be as a homeschooler? Just stop charging me taxes. In fact, stop charging taxes at all. Let the people who have their kids go there pay into the school directly. How about that? You live inside that school district. If your kids go to the school, why don't you just pay your bill to the school? That sounds like private school. Yeah, it kind of does. It really does.
Yeah.
So we just remove the bureaucrats, and it's amazing what how efficient things will get. It really is.
Yeah.
But and I mean, that's what, the point of having this conversation is there are a lot of solutions that are coming up that have a lot of issues, but there are a lot of good ideas and solutions. And I know that I think I mentioned to you earlier, as conservatives, we're predisposed to just say, eliminate the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Well, it should be eliminated at the federal level. But that doesn't really just solve all of our issues. And also, that's not really doable. Like, that's going to take a pretty strong move from someone in the executive branch to make that happen. So until then, what can we do? Because you can't just sit there and hope for 100% and do nothing to achieve 5 and another 10 and another 5 and another 15. And all of a sudden we're up to 30% there. You got to chip away at the goal somehow. And there are a lot of things like this being proposed. And there's a lot of cause for pause in there because of things that are attached, to your point. So this is a whole big, didn't cite him, just quoted. Yeah. It's true. Just don't spread it around because it's not his originally. He didn't cite his source, so you shouldn't cite him. Sorry, I got to mess with you a little bit. But this is a huge conversation. And I mean, as I have Alex's presentation rattling around in my head, there's just so much to go into that is the why public school has a problem and is corrupting our kids. And it's not even just educationally. We've kind of stayed on the educational system here, but oh my goodness, from the radical gender ideology to all sorts of other stuff that is permeating from schools into our society, from the schools. We could have a whole separate conversation about that. And I've got a lot of that stuff pulled up that we're not going to get into, but I tell you what, I think we could probably wrap it up here.
Yep.
But I'd like you to promote an event that, again, this is going to be another one. I can find some links and share them around with the email chain. Cause again, I don't know if this one will be broadcast or not, but if you're wanting just the facts, again, private school, public school, homeschool, classical schools, there's all kinds of options popping up now. But to get rid of all of the strings attached, I saw the first line of that. I happen to be looking at that spot. You can comment publicly if you want. I saw it. I know. You can comment publicly. Come on out here and face me. No, I'm just kidding. If you want to actually if you want to actually unshackle yourself from the system that it truly does not care about you or your children or basic things like human rights, property rights, these things. If you want to get rid of that, really the only way to unbuckle from the system is to take a serious look at homeschooling. And in this day and age, that does not mean you need to be an expert and know what to do and have to put together everything. That whole world of homeschooling, as everyone from 2020 who had a mass exodus can attest, that whole world is a lot easier than it used to be. But there are people who talk about it. I would advocate you should listen to. Even if you're not going to actually move your kids to a homeschooling system, there are still some major benefits for how we raise our kids, whether you're a grandparent, a parent, an uncle, an aunt. We all have this authoritative responsibility to be able to help the folks who are raising the next generations do well. And even if you're not going to just directly homeschool, there are so many awesome things to glean from people who are in that world because you have the freedom to raise your kids. So in the efforts of that, there's another cool event coming up. If you're here in St. Louis, if not, I'll find a link. We'll make sure we get some talks because I know he has been on a lot of podcasts and everything else. I can provide that. But why don't you tell us what's coming up at the end of this month that everyone should know about?
Yeah, Dr. Brian Ray, he is the president of the National Home Education Research Institute, kind of the premier researcher on homeschooling issues, homeschooling data, cited by a lot of peers in the research world when it comes to educational issues. He's going to come to the Pillar Foundation and speak on homeschooling data, expanding the homeschool freedom space, homeschooling versus government schools, and then just different studies on dyslexia, on child abuse, on the sexualization of children. This is groundbreaking research and groundbreaking studies. If you go to neary.org, he has a lot of research and tools. I have one of his printed brochures here that just has a lot of different charts when it comes to academic performances, success in the real world, workforce results for homeschoolers. And it's proven data. It's cold, hard data that works regarding homeschooling. So he's going to be in St. Louis at the Pillar Foundation on Thursday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. I think Ryan's going to share some details about that. And then the NEARI website. Great resources. If you just know somebody who's interested in homeschooling, this is a great starter. Hey, you want to homeschool? Here are some factual reasons why you should. So some great pieces, some great work from Dr. Brian Ray, who's going to be here. He also is an expert witness in court cases regarding homeschooling and does a lot of litigious work. So very well read and very well appreciated by his peers. And if you listen to Alex Newman and then you listen to Brian Ray, that's all you need.
Yeah. And I mean, really, like we were talking about that the other night, really, Alex covers a lot of the cultural, societal, well, not even societal, a lot of the cultural, moral reasons why this matters. Brian Ray is really good at getting out in front of an audience who maybe that's not their forefront thing. Let's just talk about education and standards and the nuts and bolts of how things work and teaching kids. My goodness, he's good at that. And he's absolutely excellent at presenting a different and better path than public education and how that can be a possibility for people who just think, I could never do that. Really? I know you could never do that, but could you do to your kids what you're doing to them by letting them go to these people who are stunting their educational abilities? Like, let's look at that. What does that actually mean? He does an excellent job. I think it's worth listening to. This is the good, like he said, homeschooling, thinking about homeschooling, just the facts.
Yep.
Brian Ray is really good at that. I've got a link down there. I don't see a link to this posted online anywhere, but go to the NERI website, take a look, know that this is coming up. I will definitely, if you're on our email list, I will be sharing this flyer. You'll get a hold of it. So if you're in St. Louis, great. If not, I'll try to look up a couple of videos. Oh, is it there? Oh, good, good. Okay.
If you go to thepillar.org, it's on there, front page, with all the details.
Okay, perfect. I was going to say it's being hosted at the Pillar Foundation. Do we have Substacks or blogs? No, but we should.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Do you think we should? Are we funny enough in writing, or it'll be valuable enough in writing, but
it could be.
I think it could be. I've thought about that. We should think about that. That's a good suggestion. No, not right now, but we should do that.
Shekels for shuckles.
Yeah.
That's original. That's original.
It also doesn't rhyme. But,
well, it's the
okay, fine.
Alliteration.
We're gonna. I don't. Is that that's not alliteration?
Oh, alliteration. I'm digging a hole.
That's
alliteration's when you
But yeah, okay. Homeschooler. I'm just kidding. Had to be done. I'm sorry.
Babylon Bee article. Homeschooler tries to describe alliteration.
Homeschooler insults another homeschooler with grammatically incorrect. Oh,
correct.
Man. We should start a homeschool satire website. That could work really well. But it's not alliteration. No, it's not. Someone's agreeing with you. I'm pretty sure it's not. But we're gonna Google this off the air so we don't get too far off track. But I think that this is incredibly important because what we're talking about here really, morally, spiritually, functionally, this is the future, not just of our American Republic, but of the globe, of moving forward and being the beacon, the light of freedom in the world, which is what America has stood for 250 years. This is the conversation about how we continue that, because what you and I do now, what you and I convince our congressmen to do now, and what the past congressmen did pales in comparison to the next 40 and 50 years, and then the 40 and 50 years after that. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to education, to the next generations, to their ability to actually move through issues and function and make the same kinds of great leaps and advances as the reformers and the Renaissance men and the founders of the past that have so shaped where we are now. And I tell you what, those guys were not put through the same public education hole in the ground that our kids are right now. So this is an incredibly important conversation. I know we've got our biases toward homeschooling, but at this point, I think we're pretty justified in that being a great option that has been turned into a boogeyman for people when it ought not to be. So
just the facts.
Just the facts. So please, I'm not going to Google it on air. Stop. There's other people taunting on air and off air now. I'll knock it off. I have your email. I'll hit you up later. But this is incredibly important. I encourage you to use this conversation, like we always say, as a launching point. Go and look it up yourself. Start to have these conversations with people, especially, man, when it comes to public school, private school, homeschool. When it has parents who have kids of schooling age, this can be touchy, because this comes with a lot of stereotypes and a lot of preconceived notions. Just strip a lot of those away and look at what is best for our children. And I say our, not because they belong to you and me and them and everyone else collectively, but because this is our future. My children are part of our future in the United States of America. And this is an incredibly important conversation to have. So Thank you for joining us for a little bit of it today.
Absolutely.
Thank you for looking at some of these videos. Please go and do it. It's worth your while, and looking to see if you can get involved by coming to an event and learning a little bit more. If you know someone you're predisposed to agree with us and know someone who's not, bring them along, especially to Dr. Brian Ray. They are going to get a Just the Facts presentation that is undeniably convincing just on its merits. So take a look at the links. Take a look at the rest of our phyllisschlafly.com. Sign up for the email list if you're not already. Please remember, like, share, and subscribe. Didn't start with that, should have, but y'all know the drill by now. Hit that big red button on YouTube and the little notification bell. Send this to a friend. Tell them that they should listen to it, and then you two should get together and talk for coffee over it or something like that. And join us next Thursday. We'll do this again on some other topic. We'll be controversial. We'll try to get all of our grammatical terms squared away beforehand, and then we'll get rolling at noon next Thursday. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Unauthorized Caucus next week. Bye, everybody. Did you have a final word? I realized I should ask that before I hit the button.
No, I'm good.
Oh, good, because I just wrapped it down without you. So